Okay, welcome back with chapter 2. After we have finished chapter 1, it took about 20 videos, 7 hours and a half, about 7 hours and 34 minutes of recording. We have talked about almost everything. I believe it was 13 sub-chapters, 13 separated subject. We have talked about network fundamentals, network devices, components, topologies, how to connect the network, how to establish a network, what are the devices used in a network, which scenarios should we call that this or what is happening in this scenario can be called a network or networking. After that, we have started to separate networking to some layers. We have started to talk about layer 1, after that layer 2 MAC addresses, layer 1 the cables, layer 2 MAC addresses, layer 3 IP addresses, layer 4 TCP versus UDP for the transport layer, layer 5, 6 and 7 we have just talked about it, mentioned it briefly. IP parameters, we have also talked about IP parameters, which is destined for the end devices that are using operating system like Windows, Macintosh and Linux. Finally, we have two last subchapters, which were the entirely new subchapter, which is virtualization. Had about 3 videos, almost an hour or 45 minutes of the virtualization fundamentals and concepts. And finally, we have jumped into the real labs environment and started to perform labs using Packtracer. Okay, it was a very simple lab in the last video that we have uploaded, which was only about two switches connected, computers, connected to a single switch, and just assigned two IP addresses lies beneath or underneath the same subnet or the same network, and PC number 1 should be able to ping PC number 2 and vice versa. This was all the simplest and smallest lab that we could produce for you, so you can understand what is the concept of labs or practical application is. Starting from chapter 2 right now, chapter 2 the network access, and until the end of the course or almost to chapter 7, we will do almost we will do labs, maybe one or more labs for almost every subchapter. So for each chapter we might have from 4 up to maybe 10 or 12, 15 labs. Okay, so I have informed you before, maybe twice I have mentioned that chapter 1 requires patience because it's all about concepts, principles. Starting from chapter 2 you will start implementing, configuring and troubleshooting. Okay, most of it will be done using Packtracer whenever Packtracer cannot help us for implementing and configuring, or for us to apply the entire concept that is required from the Cisco blueprint, then we will use any other emulating or emulating should do it emulating engines. Okay, so enough talking about chapter 1 and what has passed. I have also announced in this week another announcement that for our audience from the Arabic nations that are using the Arabic language, another course will be available in the upcoming days, hopefully at the start of the next week, maybe before Christmas, before the end of this year, 2019. The Arabic course will be available. There was a poll about the Arabic course should be the Arabic language to be used entirely in the course, or should we just add some Arabic subtitles to this already existing and uploading course. The poll ends up choosing the Arabic course, so it will be an entire separated course in another playlist where we will use the Arabic language, but of course we will keep the same English slides because this is what you should learn, and this is what you will face and practice on in the future after passing the exam and finishing this course. Okay, so starting now with chapter 2, I hope the voice volume problem has been solved, as some people on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page have complained about the voice, that is it is very low. Some others say there is a no background noise, others say that it's not really clear. So I hope this new mic should solve some of this problem, maybe totally into the entire problem. It's based upon your opinion. Just please say whatever you have to modify and to improve the channel and the performance of the course. Okay, chapter 2. No further talking about chapter 1 and other things. Chapter 2, which is the network access. Previously, I believe it was called layer 2 technologies. Chapter 2 was called layer 2 technologies. Now it's called network access. If you remember the network topologies in chapter 1, this is not talking about chapter 1, but it must be mentioned. We had some subchapter that was called the network topologies. In the network topologies, there was the types and layers of the network. One of them was the network access. Okay, the access tier, where we had access, distribution, and core tiers, or access, distribution, and core layers. Okay, so the access tier or the access layer, which was the first layer that is facing the end user device, the end devices, the user, the host, the personal computers, IP phones, servers, printers, and IP cameras. All of them directly do contact and communicate with the access layer. Okay, so in chapter 2 we will talk about, implement, config, troubleshoot, all of the technologies that you should know, and these technologies are to be used inside the access layer. Okay, so we will have about 5 subchapters in chapter 2. It will not be that long, just like chapter 1. This should be a short and simple chapter. We can discuss in a few matter of minutes the concepts of the subchapters. After that, we will jump to the backtracer for the configuration. The configuration is what takes the big part of this chapter. You should know how to implement, how to config the scenarios, how to troubleshoot, what are the most important commands to use while troubleshooting and verifying your implementation and configuration. For implementation, configuration, and verifying, there are two methods of teaching a new student for the Cisco world how to verify or how to use the commands of the Cisco devices. Method number 1 is to list all the necessary or all the needed commands that you might or you will need in the future, and you have to memorize them and read the description of every command to know this command will give me this result, this command will show me such thing, this command will allow me to configure such interface. The second method which we will use in our course is that we will jump directly to the scenario, and with each step you will see a new command or more than one command in a single step that you need. So while you are being involved in this scenario, you see that when I need to configure an interface or assign an IP address to an interface in a router, I will use these commands to configure and verify. After that, to exit, I will use such commands. After that, to jump to another router, or maybe to do a ping or implement a routing protocol or a layer 2 protocol, like the protocols we were about to see right now, I will use such commands. So this method, I mostly believe that this method will help you much more than the first method to memorize the commands and when to use the commands at which scenarios. Okay, so chapter 2 network access has, as we mentioned, about 5 subchapters. We will start with the first one and the most important one to understand, which is the switching concepts. How is switching done and what is switching, which is what is happening inside switches, or what are switches providing to us, why were they even developed or created. Switches, what are they do? Okay, obviously they are switching. What is switching? We will talk about it right now, but first you must know something that is by now is obsolete and gone for few years ago, which is this first point, which is the switches firstly were called bridges, okay, and had what was called the bridge table. One of the most important things that we have talked about in the subchapter, or the first subchapter in chapter 1, which was network components, we have talked about the main difference between a router and the switch, which is the port density. We say that routers are very expensive and has low port density, while switches are cheaper and has a higher port density. Switches can come from 8 up to more than 100 port inside the one single switch. Okay, so this is called high port density. Bridges, I'm sorry, as a matter of fact, were almost like routers. They had low port density, which bridges, if you haven't got the idea so far, bridges are the first or old generation of the switches. Okay, they were called bridges. The name has changed after that to become switch. Bridges had low port density. Okay, also this is mentioned here, and had something called bridge tables. The main function of bridging and switching is not different. What I mean is, what do you mean by switching? Let me first draw a switch that is connected, this here, to some devices. This is a router that is connected. Switching is all about receiving a frame, because it works in the layer 2 of the OSI model, and then it switches to its required destination. It receives some frame and redirect it, or switch, not redirect, and switch it to its required destination. Okay, so switches and bridges did the same thing, had the same concept of switching. How do they know how to do this? First of all, bridges had bridge table, which is a bridge had a table that if someone wanted to reach this MAC address, specified MAC address, then switch its frame to port number 01. If anyone wanted to reach or contact such MAC address, such destination MAC address, then switch it to port number 3. Anyone wanted to talk to such MAC address, then switch it to port number 5. Okay, so this was the bridge table. Okay, I am, as a bridge, I receive a frame wanting or wishing to contact maybe John, which he is here. Okay, I know John is on interface 03 and I received it from this interface 05, so I just switch the frame, hold it here, and switch it to John using this table. Okay, this is the concept of bridges, but bridges has a lot of problems. It was a first version of a layer 2 device. It was really old devices, now they are obsolete. After that they were developed to become the all new devices that were called switches. Okay, so now we have the new generation, which is switches. Switches came, have MAC learning based on the device port, just like bridges. Now we have a table. This is the port and this one is the MAC address. So I know to reach such MAC address, I will switch my frame to port number 1. Such MAC address, I will switch my frame to port number 3, and so on, etc. Okay, so they have MAC tables. They can memorize and know the MAC, do the MAC learning based on the device port, and the results are shown in the MAC tables. They forward frames based on the MAC table. They will use the forward frames, just like we have talked about in bridges and now switches. The big difference than bridges and hubs, switches have a lookup engine. Lookup means that, wait please, hold on, frame, I need to look you up to know where did you came from, whom do you seeking, and I will switch you to that destination. After this frame goes, I will receive the second frame that is coming from maybe the same source, the same, maybe David is contacting John, and the same time Elessa is contacting John. Okay, so I have two computers, two persons are trying to contact the same person at the same time, the same destination at the same time. Okay, so me as a switch, I have a lookup engine. What I do, that I do establish a queue and I list the frames in the queue, okay, one by one, and I will look each one of them at a time, only a single frame at a time. So the first frame came from David seeking John. I will check the source is from David, the destination, the source MAC address is the MAC address of David, the destination MAC address is the MAC address of John. So go ahead, I will switch you to John. After that is completed entirely, this switching process is completed entirely, then I will turn to Elisa and check its request, its frame that is coming from Elisa destined to John. I will look it up and switch it to John. So this is the lookup engine. Okay, it do look up only one frame at a time. It does only look up one frame at a time using queuing. Me as a switch, I do schedule the frame forwarding. Okay, firstly let me deal with the frame of David, switch it. After that I will go to Alyssa, look up its frame, her frame, and switch it to John. Okay, so this is what switches do, and this is the main reason that switches were developed. Two main reasons: the lookup engine, and the other main reason is the high port density. Okay, these are the two most big main reasons that switches were developed from bridges. Okay, so this is what makes switches can't be you can't establish networks right now without switches. Okay, you need switches in the access, of course, in the access tier, not in the distribution or core. You can deny them. Okay, but you need switches in the access tier, in the access layer of your network, because of these two main reasons. Okay, anyway, so now we have talked about the lookup engine. It does look up only one frame at a time to forward it. How fast is this happening? You are saying that me as a, maybe I'm John, I'm using YouTube to watch videos, and my Microsoft Outlook to use emails, or maybe my Gmail application to receive emails, and in the same time I'm watching YouTube. Okay, so these are two processes, but they are happening at the same time. So how is the switch that I'm connected to is looking up these two frames at the same time? It's not at the same time, each one separately, but it's a matter of microseconds. Okay, this is how fast a lookup engine works. In a matter of microseconds, it did look up the first frame. After that it went to the other frame. This is how fast it does it. Okay, so if you remember, I did a mistake in chapter 1 when I talked about CSMA over CD, the collision detection mechanism of switches. I said that it do separate collisions to multiple virtual layers, or such idea where no collision will happen. No, I was mistaken, I was confused by that time. What is correct is the lookup engine. Okay, so the lookup engine do schedule frame forwarding. No collision will happen. Okay, and everyone will receive its frame in a matter of microseconds. So this is the main function and concept of switching, based on the MAC address, using MAC learning bundle, or compare the MAC address, the destination MAC address, with the port number to deliver the required frame, and after this the lookup engine. Okay, so this is only the concept of switching. This is just a brief overview of switching, chapter 2, and some other ideas we have reviewed and talked about. We will in the next video jump to the first technology of the network access, talk about its concept. After that we will directly go to Backtracer, implement it, configure it, and verify our work. Unless we had some issues, then we will troubleshoot it, solve it. After that we will verify our results. I hope this was informative for you. I'm sorry for you. Please, for any think about the performance, about the channel, about the content, or any questions related to the material itself, comment down below in the video, like and subscribe our channel for the daily updated videos of this course until we finish the course of our CCNA. Okay, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the upcoming video.